Hi, and welcome to Eternal Beta. I'm Scott Rowe.
And I'm Nathan Anderson.
Thanks for joining us today. We have a few topics that we'd like to briefly talk about. Hope you guys find it interesting. I know we do. The first one is actually Google Drive. For those of you not aware, on April 24th, Google finally released Google Drive, and this has kind of been vaporware over the past few years. People wondering when it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Using how to use your email, your Gmail account to send yourself large attachments to use that as data storage, or Google Documents, which of course restricts the different types of documents and files that you can actually upload. But now it's official. Google finally has G Drive. You can go to drive.google.com and you get up to 5 gigabytes of storage for free. It works a lot like services like Box.net or My Dropbox or Microsoft service. SkyDrive. It's just something interesting. If they just finally launched it, going to start messing around with it and see how beneficial it is. I mean, it's so much like the other services that it's just another option.
Is it going to be too little too late, do you think?
I think due to the fact that Google is still this giant behemoth and people are using their docs tools or using their Gmail accounts and things like that, I think a lot of people automatically default to that who already use them. But people that primarily use Yahoo as their email source or tool source or Microsoft, they're probably going to look at other options. Plus Box.net and My Dropbox do have a really, really strong user base.
Yes.
And in a lot of cases, they already have a subscription model. People are already paying for those services. So maybe let's use it to augment what they're currently using for additional personal things. I don't know if it's going to take off to the extent. I think they need to come up with a little better set of tools to make it a little more interesting. I mean, you can upload things, you can share it via links and stuff like that, which is great. But like you said,
I understand there's a concept of apps that you can install through the Google Store, the Play. And so that seems to be how they're maybe differentiating it there, but I haven't had a chance to play with it yet. It's just picking things out.
It hasn't been out there very long.
No.
So we'll give it a test drive and really see what we think of it, and report back in a later episode about that. But the second topic, this is a really very, very interesting one.
Elsewhere in Google's hatchery, I guess, we have Android and the people who use it. Just yesterday, Barnes & Noble and Microsoft announced that they had come to an agreement over the usage of Nook and its Android operating system. They are creating a new subsidiary that Microsoft will have a $300 million stake in, which will equal about 20% of the company. And this is settling a patent dispute that they've had going on since last April. And Microsoft has really been making the rounds with Android device manufacturers. Interestingly, the manufacturers over Google. But between Barnes & Noble and some other recent settlements, 70% of Android devices sold in the United States now are going to give a little uptick to Microsoft's bank account. And probably before long, given its patent portfolio, we'll see every Android smartphone will give Microsoft some royalty money.
Right. I was even noticing that there was another patent lawsuit in regards to Java and Google, and they're still kind of dealing with that whole thing with Sun Microsystems and stuff. So that'll be interesting. It's also interesting just from a patent perspective, how many companies are still out there buying up entire portfolios of patents. Wasn't it Microsoft?
Microsoft recently bought 650
AOLs.
Patents from AOL.
So
which Facebook then went around and bought for less money.
Brilliant. But it's amazing just looking at the sheer number of patents that are out there in software patents. This is a whole nother discussion. But you really hope that ultimately doesn't completely stifle creativity and stifle new technology advancements, because every little thing has been patented. I mean, even Apple patenting, the motion gesture, slide to unlock. It's kind of crazy. But in regards to the Nook and those, I think it's interesting in that Microsoft has really had a hard time competing in that arena.
They've been playing catch up for quite a while.
I mean, with their new mobile operating system, it has a lot of great reviews, but when your total user base is like 3.8% of the entire market, it's kind of inconsequential. So it'll be interesting to see if they all can ultimately use that relationship and to create an additional product running the Windows
Yes.
OS, or if ultimately they'll just say, hey, well, we're happy to take the money,
Yeah.
from the licensing of the patents and call it good.
Well, Microsoft's probably one of the few companies that have the luxury of buying relevance, and so with this arrangement with Barnes & Noble, we could very well see a dedicated Nook app running on the next generation of Windows 8 tablets, which would also be a great avenue for Microsoft to compete against Apple and its iBook store.
Right.
Their announcement earlier this year positioning textbooks as a big sell for the iPad. If Microsoft can have an answer to that via the Nook, then that's just yet another market that they can compete in and ultimately hawk their tablets when they eventually come out.
I haven't read anything on this, and if you haven't, I'm just curious. Has there been anything in regards to Amazon and the Kindle Fire? Because that runs a highly customized version of Android.
They just up and paid licensing fees.
Oh,
They
okay.
didn't even bother going to court. A lot of these companies, that's where these interesting settlements have happened. Microsoft offered a lot of the Android manufacturers a patent leasing agreement, basically, and some of them took them, and Amazon was one of those.
Yeah, they were probably smart to do that and just not have to deal with the legal ramifications of all of it. Yeah,
They have their creative freedom now
Right.
versus having to all of a sudden form a company with your competitor.
That's not always a good idea.
No.
Sometimes it is.
Although they say keep your enemies close, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That works most times, I guess. The last thing, we just had a really quick thing. I think this is interesting. I've been a Yahoo user since the late 90s. I had a Yahoo Mail account way back.
My first one, too.
The first one?
Yeah.
And using Yahoo search before Google even existed. Kind of dates us a little bit. But, so I've been using a Flickr user for quite a while and uploading all my personal photographs. And for quite a while, it was like the best photo repository, web-based photo repository system out there. And when Google or Yahoo acquired it, it kind of stagnated to some extent. And with the kind of the advent of Pinterest, this whole photo sharing thing has kind of taken on a whole new perspective, in that it's not just about uploading your own photographs to share with other people, it's about sharing other people's imagery, photographs, and elements too. So Flickr is actually interesting in that they haven't really allowed that level of integration. Even when sharing a Flickr photograph in your website, you're supposed to use a specific embed code that automatically links that image back to the Flickr system in order for the additional versions of that image to be seen. But it's interesting, and now they realize the viability of Pinterest as kind of a source of traffic, that they've actually implemented the Pinterest share functionality directly into Flickr. Before, you had to use Pinterest share functionality to put the URL of the image you wanted to embed and all of that. So it's interesting that Flickr has at least, the Flickr has acknowledged, that Pinterest is a huge application with an enormous number of users, and if they really want people to share that data to be able to keep them kind of relevant in the photo sharing arena, they were going to have to implement that functionality.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder if the target audiences of the two products line up, because before we started shooting, we were talking about that Pinterest primary audience is just here in the Midwest with us, but older women. And Flickr I've always seen as more of the photographer's social network, and I wonder how their user bases line up, if this is going to be like a nice happy medium in the middle, or just how much thought was made into that versus just slapping the newest hot button on your site.
I suspect it was probably more slapping the new hot button on the site, to be completely honest with you. But no, that's a really good point. I mean, I remember early days of Flickr, there was a tremendous amount of usage among like graphic design professionals putting up layouts and things like that, which is actually kind of against their terms of service. You're really only supposed to put
it's a photography website,
photographs and not layouts and stuff like that. So I don't know. That's an interesting perspective. I'm not really sure if they even care that much at this point in time. I think it's more about just getting traffic based on people leveraging Pinterest so incredibly much.
Views are views for now.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's cool. That's a good point. So we'll check out Google Drive, and we'll report back at a later episode as to what we really think of the product, and we'll probably even maybe do a comparison to Microsoft product and My Dropbox and some of those, just to give you some insights as to which one we think is the overall best. But if you have any questions or any other topics you'd like us to cover, as always, go ahead and tweet us at Bozell, and we'll get back to you. And if you have some good ideas and some things to cover, we'll definitely look into doing that. But thank you very much.
Thank you.